This video will be a full guide on how to get good in TABG beta. I'll give tips for both beginners and veteran players, and after that I will also mention some important skills and techniques in FPS games and what you can even do outside of the game to improve in-game. First off, TABG isn't a game to be taken seriously at all. It's meant to goof around and fish slap people. If you're a tryhard, that might not be a game for you. This game is unbalanced and there's some stuff in it which are just weird because it's there to have fun with. If you dislike that, play something else to sweat your balls and get them salty. With that out of the hand, let's talk about shooting mechanics and the wobble in TABG. I will mention the wobble now because I will mention it throughout the entire video, because it makes the game so different to regular FPS games. The wobble is that physics-based drag collision thing, or to quote the Russian Badger, the game where everyone is a noodle. You have to develop a skill to factor in the wobble in basically everything, like shooting, moving, or even your loadout. You should mainly hip fire. The gun tries to center itself in front of you, aiming to the center point, and they're totally accurate. You can hit targets which are like 50 meters away or even further, depending on the gun and attachments which you are using. When you move to the left, the gun wobbles to the right. When you move to the right, the gun will wobble to the left. Keep that in mind, that's very important. For new players, I highly recommend to use laser sights. Only ADS when you take precise shots. The wobble will ruin your aim. So ADS when you have long range engagements, or when you need to take that one shot kill. Another reason why you might want to ADS is when your gun won't point above an obstacle. If you feel confident you can counterbalance the wobble, then go for it, but for new players I advise against it. Tips for those who played TABG for a little bit longer: you can ADS when you are on a flat or smooth surface. There's nothing beside yourself where your feet can entangle. Another tip I got from the legend itself, Saltique: when you jump and ADS at the moment where you start falling, your gun is most accurate there. It's easier if you have some mobility blessings though. Now about jumping. You should jump around like a madman, because you become a harder target, you become less predictable in your movement, and you also become more mobile, obviously. As I mentioned before, when you fall, there's no wobble applied to you. When you jump and hip fire, there's actually a little bit of wobble applied to you, though when you jump and ADS, the wobble will affect your aim greatly. A thing I saw from the legend doing: he jumps from the left and right while he's reloading in close combat engagements, or when he's on an open field. Learn how to climb, best with your weapons holstered. You can climb basically everything as long there's some notch where at least one of your arms or legs can jump from. That notch can be a prick on the wall which stands out. You can climb easier when you're dual wielding, because your gun stick goes further and they're quite stiff. You will have a harder time climbing through windows with large or clunky weapons. What I saw from the best players, they often move around with holstered weapons, because not only you move faster, but there's also no collision of your weapons which can entangle on shit. Another reason why you want to move holstered: when you re-equip your weapon, they're far less likely to entangle on your own body. Though, when you notice that your gun is entangled behind you, your wobbler tries to push the gun forward, where he pushed himself forward, leading to faster movement. Yeah, that's pretty troll logic, but that's how it is. I will cover weapons, nades and blessing just briefly, because I wasn't planning on covering them at all. though that one got asked quite a lot. I'll start with nades because they're more important than which gun you are using. Use nades in like every encounter and don't be greedy with them, because when you die you lose all of them anyways. You want to use nades to zone out your enemies, so that you can predict where they are coming from, or they will die to your nade if they won't retreat. There's so many nades in TABG and they can be used in so many different ways.
Come on guys, let's get creative!
For example, use the cage nade not only to cage in your enemies, but to create cover or climb trees. You can use the knockback nade to traverse the landscape faster when you're in a hurry. You can use the healing or shield nade as bait to throw dynamite there. I made a short overview on how I categorize the nades. When I want to stun my enemies, I use either the knockback, the impulse, or even the frag nade. If I need to create some cover, I use the wall, the cage, or the shield nade. The smoke and the snow nade for concealment. When I want to get some infos on my opponents, I use the dummy nade to check where the shots are coming from, the snow and the lava nade to hit scan if the building is clear, the shield nade to phase scan an open field, and the jump pad to eagle scan the surrounding areas. To just zone out an enemy, I use the stun, frag, dynamite, arrow, black hole, lava, snow, cluster, and bombard nade, as well as the orbital strike. To clear buildings or cover, I use the splinter, bouncy, lava, or bombard nade. And I use the followings for their utility, like the jump pad, healing, cage, dummy, and wall nade. Now to the blessings. Blessings are meant to complement your playstyle or your weapons. Sometimes they even determine which weapons you are gonna use, or vice versa. I categorize blessings in the following groups: HP buff, the HP blessing obviously, bloodlust and shield, mobility buffs, speed, hunt, dash and jump, information, poison and insight, weapon buffs, mastery, spray and storm, survivability, regeneration, recycling, relax and vampire, utilitarian, small, mad mechanic and sword of justice. The rest is just trash tier or very situational. Weapons in TABG. To be honest, I feel like it's redundant to talk about them because it's still in beta and the weapon balancing will be changed. Though still almost every single weapon is viable in TABG, especially with certain attachments equipped. As long as it's fun and they work for you, go for it. But because it got asked, I'll give a few examples for attachments in combination with certain weapons. The fast barrel increases your bullet velocity. On a crossbow, it turns it in one of the best sniper rifles. On an M16, it turns it basically to a beam AR. And it turns every single sniper rifle into a hitscan rifle, which makes it easier to hit moving targets. The fast fire rate barrel does exactly what it says. It increases the fire rate, though it also decreases the damage by around 5%. Though if you put it on a slow shooting gun like the BAR MP44 or MP40, they become a viable and strong hitting gun. I also like to put it on a SCAR 8 or AK-47, but then you have to hit those shots. I wouldn't put it on already fast shooting rifles, because then not all bullets would get registered and you have to hit twice as many bullets or even more. Decompensated, this makes strong guns even stronger and LMGs usable. The AUG turns into a laser. The M16 turns into the beam AR again. And the MG42 turns back to its former glory. The accuracy barrel decreases your bullet spread, so if you put it on your pistols, you can dual wield them like in the previous patch. Put them on the FAMAS or Glockinator as well as the P90 and they become even more potent. The double barrel is useful for one-shot kill weapons, like skill shot weapons, sniper rifles or shotguns. The health analyzer should help you deciding if you should re-engage into a firefight or not. So when you choose your loadout, either balance it properly or specialize and force your opponents to engage there. I see blessings like a character building system in an RPG. I either choose an all-rounder or I specialize in something. You can play as a tank, a damage dealer, mobility freak or support. I personally like to play as a mobility freak mixed with something because it's the most fun for me. Loadouts I enjoy playing with look something like this. Bloodless, so I won't die that quickly. Hunt, so I can move faster. Jump, to dodge and get better positions. The M16 with a fast barrel and a 4x scope. Dual 1911 with accuracy barrels. Or a damage dealer. HP again to take more hits. Speed to quickly go in and go out. Storm for higher DPS, the MG42 with a compensator, VSS with a fast barrel, and the grappling hook. Now to the Gulag. Stage 1, watch where the pillars are falling and just avoid them. Stage 2, fly closely beside the pillars and check the rotation. Stage 3, either avoid the pillars altogether, which is easier, or fly towards small groups of them and fly closely beside them like in stage 2. Also, if you press W, you fly faster. If you press S, you will make a hard brake. By far the hardest thing to learn is how to roadkill. I've only seen it done by the best players and they usually do it with a one-shot kill weapon. They approach the target in a 50-degree angle or even more narrow. It's easier on a bike and yes, that's basically it. The last thing I'm gonna talk about TABG specific tips is doing the item management. Because it's a bit tedious, so most players won't do it, but if you do it, you gain an advantage over the others. Pre-select your grenades for the next situation you're gonna get into. Don't hoard on attachments. You want to quickly switch between nades and perhaps blessings. When you drop, open your inventory and spam click the right mouse button on the area where the loot shows up. You can loot while you're stunned. Loot all the nades first, ammo can come second. You don't need all the ammo when you are in a hurry. When you loot a dead body,
everybody do the flop,
and throw a nade to cover your ass. And the last thing, don't loot at the end game. I consider to might do a tips or tricks video by myself, but I don't know if I should just give them to Small Waffles and he should do them. But best just let me know in the comment section what you prefer. Now to the FPS genre specific stuff. I'm mainly just gonna mention them. If you want to get more info on that, do research by yourself. FPS games are team-oriented games, so coordination is key. Give call-outs to your teammates. Information is as crucial as coordination. Use your map knowledge to your advantage. Be aware which perspective angles you are holding. That means think about how much of your avatar is exposed and what you see from your opponent's avatar first. That's why you usually want to have the high ground, because the camera is mounted in front of your face. Shoot in the depth of the room so that the shadows are hiding you and less of your avatar is exposed. Don't hug the walls and don't sit right in front of the openings. Clear room by cutting the fire. Pre-aim and pre-fire. Use shadows and reflection to gather intel. Shoot at suspicion, especially in games where there's no friendly fire. Quick peek and don't peek more often than 2 times, unless you feel confident or are forced to do so. Relocate to keep your opponents guessing. After you shot, relocate so that your last location is already outdated. Simply learn the recoil patterns. When you face good players, bait and switch. Use the hit scan mechanic to scan concealment. Simply listen to audio cues. When there's an enemy, expect a second one right around the corner. Use the netcode structure of the game to your advantage. Has the peeker or the anchor the advantage? Most of the time it's the peeker though. Low texture settings means less details for your brain to filter out. Outlines become more clearly. Nvidia's in-game filters can be used to manipulate the lighting level, shadows and such, which makes the game look like ass, but other players are better visible. You don't need to see the entire body of your opponent. Start shooting when you see just a part of them. Most of the time they will walk right into your fire anyways. When you're holding pixel peaks, shoot when there's a shift in color. Now to what you can do outside of the game to improve in-game. First off, your mindset. Don't blame others or the game for you failing. If you blame others, you don't see a reason why you should improve. If you see failure or mistakes as a tool to overcome them, you will improve in a much faster rate. Obviously, it also applies to real life. Surround or compete against people who are better than you. If you are the smartest or the best person in your environment, you will improve much slower, because you are the limit. Anthropods like apes or humans copy successful techniques and adapt to its environment. That's how we evolved our society and tools. So copy what makes sense for you and brings you further to your success. I know that I know nothing. That's a quote from Socrates. If you talk to someone who has a different opinion to yours and write them off as an idiot, you limit yourself to your own point of view. Taking the opposite opinion in evaluation and trying to understand them might give ideas and increase the point of view on certain things. No one is born and has eaten wisdom with a spoon, obviously, but that's usually or hopefully gets learned in adulthood. Also, creativity is the greatest tool a human being has to overcome challenges. There are multiple solutions for a problem and you just have to find the right one for you. The mindset isn't just something which affects your in-game obviously, but to be honest, I don't give a shit about what you take from it or not. nor do I give a single fuck if that changes you as a person or not. You do you. Now to the peripherals and ergonomics. Get a monitor which has 120Hz or more. It helps with better target tracking and earlier reaction. The monitor should also have a reaction time of 4 milliseconds or less. The input you see on the screen is closer to your personal reaction time, and it also helps with ghosting. Get a rig which can give you more than 120 frames per second, so that your monitor can actually display 120 frames per second. The more frames you have, the faster your input can be computed. Using an 80 or 60% keyboard will give you more disk space for your mouse. A flat keyboard or a keyboard with a wrist rest will help prevent wrist pain. The closer your arms are positioned together, the easier it is for your brain to coordinate both. But it's more important that you position your arms comfortably. Your mouse should also feel comfortably, not too light, not too heavy. Lower your DPI on the mouse you're using to aim more precisely. I suggest a DPI of 800, but whatever feels good for you. High DPI is better for fast-paced games like Titanfall 2. Lower DPI is better for slow-paced games like Rainbow Six Siege. Because you should learn how to aim with your upper and lower arm, wrist, and perhaps even control the recoil with your fingers or shoulder. The more points of adjustments you have, the finer you can adjust to your target. Also use headphones. In some games, including TABG, it's having like wall hacks. I use surround sound 7.1 to better locate my enemies, and that's also the reason my audio sounds like shit. Use the buttons on your mouse and keyboard which are easily accessible, so no overreaching to the H key for unarming, for example. Use mouse button 4 or 5 if you have them. I have a 1.5 liter jug filled with water beside to keep me hydrated. Dehydrated brains perform marvels. I don't drink energy drinks or do drugs, beside of alcohol. When I play in tournaments, I drink energy drinks because it's out of my habit. So it has a greater effect on me than someone who is used to it. But do whatever, I don't care what you do to yourself. I know I got quite lazy on the non-TABG specific stuff, but the TABG part took me like a month to complete, and I couldn't be bothered with that shit. Though if you made it all the way through, then you earned a cookie.